Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession. Today, I want to dissect a specific scene in one of my favorite horror movies, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I previously took a deep look at Tina's death scene in Nightmare on Elm Street, and check out that video if you're curious. Tina's death is the first death in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, setting the stage for the rest of the movie and introducing one of the most iconic villains in all of cinema. Today, I want to look at the opening kill scene in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what choices Tobe Hooper made, including the sound design, set design, and going through the shot list to see if we can figure out what makes this scene so iconic. First, let's set the stage. 5 friends are driving through Texas looking for the grave of one of their grandfathers, but they are running low on gas. They stop at an old house, and Pam and Kirk want to cool off in the blistering Texas heat by going for a quick swim. So they ask Franklin, who used to live there, where the old swimming hole is. He directs them there, and after they head out, Franklin notices some peculiar bones on the floor and hanging from the ceiling. This is where our scene begins, by showing the audience something is off and bad things are about to happen. I would imagine most of the audience probably guessed that based on the title of the movie. But Tobe makes sure the tension in the scene that follows is high. There is something known as the Kuleshov effect, where audiences' interpretation of an image is colored by the images that precede them. This makes intuitive sense, but it is important to acknowledge it, since that is exactly what is going on here. Alright, let's check out the first sequence.
Zero in the world. The shooting put us out of our misery. Snakes, there's spiders, there's scorpions, man-eating lizards.
We start with an establishing shot of the house, with the Texas heat causing a shimmer on the camera, perfect for making Pam and Kirk's decision to go swimming more realistic. Next, the camera pans down and we see Pam and Kirk running, first from a wide 2-shot, then cutting to a voyeuristic medium-wide 2-shot. Notice the foliage in front of the camera, which creates the impression someone is watching Pam and Kirk, enhancing the sense of danger, especially when contrasted with their happy-go-lucky, literal frolicking through the field. The camera pans left, following the movement of Pam and Kirk, in the same way a predator might track its prey. Alright, let's watch some more of the scene.
Crap. This must be it.
Oh, you okay?
How
Oh,
the hell did Franklin ever get down here anyway?
somebody must have carried him when he was little.
Franklin never was little. Gasoline.
Pam and Kirk stumble into a full 2-shot, which zooms out into a wide 2-shot. Upon noticing the house in the distance, they decide to go try and get some gas, and Tobe zooms in on the house in the distance to draw the audience's attention there. Not a lot going on in that segment, but let's keep watching.
I can leave him my guitar, give him a couple bucks. We gotta come back by here anyway. I can pick up my guitar and give him a couple more dollars and bring him back some gas.
They don't want your guitar. They're not going to want to sell us any gas. Let's just go back now.
We cut to a medium 2-shot with our characters in silhouette. The Texas sun is very prominent and powerful in this shot, assaulting Pam and Kirk and the audience simultaneously. We then cut to an establishing shot of the landscape of the house, followed by a shot of these cups tied to a tree. These items hint at the fact that people live here, and that there is something wrong with them mentally, but keeping it fairly vague. This is good, because the unknown is scarier than the known, and you want to keep your cards close to the vest and not reveal the nature of the threat until the right moment. The unease is starting to build. Let's see what Tobe does next. Tobe cuts to a shot of Pam and Kirk jogging to the house, once again using a voyeuristic shot through these trees to create the impression someone is watching them. This is very unsettling imagery, and works to maintain the suspense of the scene through nothing more than creative shot framing. We get another medium-wide two-shot with the camera panning left to follow Pam and Kirk's movement, and I want to pause and briefly discuss the repetitive nature of these shots. Tobe is both alerting the audience to the fact something is off and creating suspense, but also lulling the audience to sleep by dragging out the shots of these characters approaching the house. Typically, you would want to edit out these scenes as being unnecessary and not moving the story forward, but including them creates a very slow sense of increasing dread. We know something is wrong. The damn movie is called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we don't know when bad things are going to happen, and the calm nature of these tracking shots helps stretch that tension as much as possible. Alright, let's keep going.
Hey, come here! Come here, look at this!
Alright, next, Tobe gives us a shot from inside this camouflage net, holding for just a moment before Kirk comes into screen framed in a medium single. I love this shot because it holds in place, completely static, until Pam comes into frame, and then we get this beautiful zoom out and track left to reveal what the characters are looking at. Good pacing is all about keeping the audience interested in what is going to happen next, and Tobe took a bit of a risk by using all those tracking shots earlier. Not exactly the most dynamic, action-packed way of delivering the story, but now we get this shot which makes the audience desperately want to know what Pam and Kirk are looking at, and then it reveals it to us without any cuts. The lack of cuts helps put the audience into the world we are watching, since too many cuts becomes jarring, and this feels like we are actually moving through Texas with the characters. Showing the cars is excellent because we as the audience know the cars belong to former victims, but Pam and Kirk don't, so they remain nonplussed. Great camera work in that last shot. Let's see how he follows it up. Next, Tobe cuts to a wide two-shot, holding for a second on the cars after our characters have exited frame, giving the audience the extra moment to ponder the meaning of the cars to make sure everyone is wondering why the family would be hiding these perfectly good cars here. Next, we get an almost ground-level tracking shot where the camera moves to slowly reveal the generator. The sound design here is basically what you would expect, with the generator overpowering their voices to some extent, making it hard to hear what they are saying. This is exactly what Pam and Kirk are experiencing, and you want the audience to feel the same thing as Pam and Kirk, since it is now of critical importance the audience be in the perspective of our two characters. Otherwise, the upcoming horror is much less impactful. Tobe then cuts to a quick shot of the generator, which zooms out a smidge, presumably to show the barrel of gas, because, remember, Pam and Kirk are here for gas. It is important to remind the audience of the motivation of these characters and why they continue on their journey to the house. Let's keep going. Next, we cut to yet another wide two-shot, this time tracking right for the reasons discussed earlier. After that, we finally get to the establishing shot of the outside of the house, with Pam and Kirk minuscule in frame relative to it. This is important because it makes them feel small and insignificant, and it gives the house power over them. The camera starts static, then tracks right to frame Pam and Kirk between the swing set. This is a cool looking shot, which is enough in and of itself, I think, but also serves to set up the tracking shot with Pam coming up in a second. There is something creepy about the empty swing slowly drifting in the breeze as well, which adds to the sense of unnerve created by the animal bones and voyeuristic shots earlier. Tobe has kept the pace very slow, but does it stay that way? Let's find out.
Got something for you.
Let's go!
Now we are right up next to the house with Pam and Kirk, looking down on them from what feels like the perspective of the house itself. They are calm and relaxed until we cut to this insert shot of the tooth Kirk accidentally kicks while pacing. He picks it up, and we zoom out for a moment before cutting back to the overhead wide two-shot. Tobe then cuts to this very uncomfortable, extreme close-up of the tooth as it's placed in Pam's hand. A great choice since it makes the audience feel as uncomfortable as Pam, once again placing the audience behind the eyes of the characters in the scene. Pam storms off, and Kirk knocks on the house door. The sense that something is wrong is escalating, and let's see how Tobe shoots the house.
Hello? 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 Hey, Pam, come look at this.
Let's go!
Hello? Is anybody home? Hello?
Okay, so Kirk opens the door, and we get our first shot from inside the house. Kirk is framed in a single full shot, almost in silhouette in the doorway, again creating the impression something is watching him from inside the house. Tobe quickly cuts back to Pam with a slight slide of the camera which mirrors her movement as she sits down. Having your camera movements mimic the movements of the characters causes the audience to feel more connected to those characters, something Fincher is a master of, and the perfect technique for this quick cut. Next, we are back to the silhouette full single to show Kirk making the fateful decision to enter the house. The camera then cuts to almost exactly a 180 reverse from Kirk's perspective, showing the interior of the house. As the rising action comes to a close, it is absolutely imperative the audience is in the mind of Kirk, thinking and feeling the same as him. Showing a camera shot of exactly what a character sees is the perfect way to accomplish this. Alright, we are in the house and it looks creepy as fuck. Let's see what happens next.
Pam! Hello?
Tobe cuts back to the reverse shot, moving the camera much closer to Kirk and framing him in a medium single, the first shot like this in a while. The closer the camera to the character, the more in tune with him we are. Tobe cuts right back to Kirk's perspective for the reasons discussed before. Next, we go back to the medium single, and finally back to the full single with him in silhouette. He stumbles into the room, and in rapid succession we get a shot of Kirk from above, clearly from Leatherface's perspective, then a very disturbing shot from Kirk's perspective of Leatherface raising the hammer above his head. The camera cuts back to the doorway so we can see the situation unfold. A very impersonal, cold, emotionless shot which holds with no camera movement at all and nothing else lit well enough to distract the audience. This forces you to watch the brutal murder accentuated with his flailing legs, creating a visual comparison between Kirk and an animal being slaughtered. A clear metaphor which is deepened in subsequent scenes. Tobe cuts to showing Kirk flailing from the perspective of Leatherface, then back to the wide shot to show the second blow to his head, ending any movement from Kirk once and for all. Leatherface then slams the door shut, leaving what is transpiring behind that door to the audience's imagination, and since the unknown is scarier than the known, this is an excellent choice. With the first death of the movie out of the way, how does Tobe keep the tension high for the rest of the sequence? Let's take a look.
Kirk? Kirk? Kirk?
Tobe cuts to back outside the house, framing Pam in a medium close-up, blissfully unaware of the horrors taking place just behind that door. Pam decides to get up, and we get one of my favorite shots in all of cinema, a tracking shot under the bench, following Pam as she walks inexorably closer and closer to her grisly fate. The camera stops just short of the house, almost as if the camera is afraid of getting closer than that, while Pam hesitates for just a moment but climbs the steps to search for Kirk. There is a very slight Dutch angle here, which is a slight tilt of the camera so it is not level with the ground. This creates a sense of unease in the audience and is generally used to create or accentuate suspense. This scene is a perfect example of the Kuleshov effect, since without Kirk's head thumping we just saw, this casual walk to the house wouldn't be suspenseful, but with it, it is brimming with tension. So what does Tobe do next? Let's find out. Tobe cuts to inside the house on the other side of the screen, showing Pam in a medium close-up as she too makes the decision to enter the house. The audience is now fully in Pam's perspective, having followed her step by step from the swing to the porch and now inside the door. She is clearly disgusted with the house, but obviously wants to find her boyfriend before leaving, so she is properly motivated to make this choice. Once inside, the camera gives us a little breathing room and cuts back to a cowboy shot, called this because it was popularized in westerns to show the gun at a cowboy's hip. As Pam moves into the house, the camera slides backward just a little, moving with Pam and forcing us into her shoes. The next shot is from Pam's perspective, this time showing the closed door that God knows what is happening behind. To really get us into Pam's perspective, the camera actually moves to the door to the left, just like Pam does, and then Tobe cuts to a very dark wide shot. Alright, Mr. Hooper, let's see what you got next.
Kirk? Kirk?
I actually don't like this very much. Tobe clearly wants to show Pam entering the human bone furniture room from behind, and the camera sliding behind her as she goes in is a nice touch, but I would have preferred to light the scene a bit better and have the camera follow her from behind, in what has become the classic way to shoot and investigate a strange noise scene. Next, Tobe places the camera on the ground where Pam falls, A clever shot to keep the audience from fully realizing what is in the room with her. She doesn't know yet, so we shouldn't know yet. Okay, let's keep this disgusting horror train chugging along, and action. Next, we get a close-up of Pam as she scans the room, followed by a bunch of insert shots on the horrific set design. The inclusion of obvious human bones clearly serves to alert Pam of the sick, twisted nature of the house she is in, and Tobe's decision to really show off all the bones in the room does drag on a bit, with the end effect making you feel absolutely disgusted at what you are watching, which is exactly how Pam feels and honestly works really well. There are a ton more insert shots of the crazy set design, where the set dressers literally drove around the highways of Texas and got actual roadkill and put it all over the room, which apparently smelled just terrible. And it all looks realistic and disgusting, but there isn't much to analyze, so I figured I'd just play it at increased speed and stop when Pam starts retching. There are a lot of rapid cuts around the room, all focusing on Pam's back as she retches into the floor. The rapid cuts to different shots creates a sense of urgency, and Pam goes to run from the house. We cut back to a full single, but wait, it's actually a full double as Leatherface makes his entrance. A quick cut to the spot Leatherface just was makes the audience see the situation from his perspective for a moment, and also sets up the terrifying shot of Pam bursting through the door, only to be caught by Leatherface and dragged back inside. A couple quick cuts from the reverse perspective, then a cut to a medium close-up of Pam, putting the audience behind her eyes for the abduction sequence. The primal screaming is excellent sound design, and they really don't hold back at all here. Tobe cuts back to the floor-level wide shot of Leatherface dragging her behind the door, and we finally get to see what horrors lie within. The payoff for all the slow, wide tracking shots earlier is pretty damn good, and you can see where this movie gets its reputation. But how does Tobe escalate the tension even further? Let's find out. Tobe cuts to a wide shot of the room with the meat hook framed in the center of the shot, allowing the audience to realize and subsequently dread what is about to happen for as long as possible. Her increasingly frantic attempts to escape really hammer home Pam's terror, and a cut to the reverse shot from the floor helps show the futility in her attempts as he overpowers her. There is a very quick cut back to the wide shot with the hook center frame, and then to a wide shot with Kirk's dead body blocking the view of Pam being placed on the meat hook. We've seen enough to know exactly what just happened, but Tobe cuts to a close-up of Pam's screaming face to make sure the audience really feels it. Next, he goes back to the wide shot as Leatherface goes to work, since the audience is now being forced into his perspective. This is one of the most brutal, grimy scenes in horror, especially for the time, and provides a great contrast to the normal-looking exterior of the house and serene, peaceful frolic through the grass earlier. So let's see how Tobe wraps it all up. we get a shot behind Leatherface, since Pam and Kirk are now nothing more than meat to be butchered, and the camera pans down and zooms in on the iconic chainsaw. Tobe shows us the blood bucket underneath Pam, and of course all the blood on the walls, giving us the gruesome realization that this is not an uncommon occurrence. Leatherface gleefully starts the chainsaw, and then we cut back to the wide shot showing the whole set at once as Leatherface starts cutting up Kirk's body. Tobe forces us back to Leatherface's perspective with this medium close-up, which zooms to a close-up, and right back to the wide shot now that we have been placed in his perspective. There is a final zoom in on Pam's screaming face, one last reminder of the devastating fate she is about to endure before the scene ends. Overall, Tobe uses voyeuristic shots of Pam and Kirk approaching the house to create suspense. He then drags out the approach to the house for as long as possible to help draw the tension tighter and tighter, using numerous techniques to force the audience into Pam and Kirk's perspective. There are a few cuts to remind the audience of Pam and Kirk's motivation, which is essential for the momentum of the script, but also because it is hard to empathize with someone who is acting irrationally. The camera starts with almost all wide shots and creeps closer and closer to the characters as their bloody demise draws nearer and nearer. This entire scene is a masterclass in building suspense and creating unease in the audience before an explosion of horrific violence, which is contrasted against the quiet exterior of the house perfectly. Slight adjustments in camera placement, having the camera move ever so slightly with the characters, sound design, and framing are all tools a director can use to maximize the emotional impact of their scenes without needing a budget. And Tobe utilized everything to perfection here and created a movie which helped build the foundation for millions of people's future horror obsession.